Hello, listeners. Before we start, I just want to remind you, you can listen to Nighttime early and ad-free on Amazon Music. Include it with Prime.
You are listening to Keep Canada Weird, a weekly weird news roundup by the Nighttime Podcast.
Handsome Air and Airport. Episode 167 of Keep Canada Weird is on our plates. I have a knife. I have a fork. I'm ready to dig in and share it with you.
You should start off every episode with, I have a knife.
I'm hungry, so I needed a food analogy. How's things? Yeah. Everything all right?
Yeah, everything's good. Just chipping away at life and, enjoying the weather. The weather's been gorgeous lately, so been outside a lot. How about you?
Well, I have been good up until right about 5 minutes ago. Like I often say, this is going to be the best episode ever. I felt that way until I sat down in my office to start recording with you and realized that somehow a housefly found its way into my downstairs studio space, and it just keeps whizzing by my head. And I kind of feel like I'm on some weird kind of experimental podcast crash course that I'm being put into. Can you stay on topic with a fly buzzing by you periodically?
I think you'll be okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Okay.
The more you think and obsess about it, the worse it'll get. So why don't you just relax?
I'm also pretty quick, so if he comes near me, whack, you may hear something exciting. But there are listeners out there who have it way worse than me. I'm in this room with a housefly. I want to start the show off with a voicemail from a listener named Donna. We've been talking about June bugs the last couple episodes. As far as I can tell, Donna sent us a voicemail while being locked in a room while at work, taking cover from a June bug. Listen to, I guess we can call this Donna's cry for help.
Hi, this is Donna. I'm calling about your encounters with June bugs. I worked the back shift at a restaurant. This is the second time I had to call a coworker in because there's a June bug in the house. So I lock myself in the office until he gets here. I am shaking. I'm going to have a heart attack.
I think she ended by saying, I think I'm going to have a heart attack. And then it cuts off.
That's the moment when the June bug got in and got her and carried her away.
I hope she's okay. If you're out there, Donna, I hope you didn't have a heart attack and that you were just being a little tongue-in-cheek about the whole thing. But I always enjoy those kinds of voicemails when they're in the middle of something and they decide at that point to go to nighttimepodcast.com/contact and hop on the horn with us.
Yeah, it's like, I'm at a funeral and there's a June bug here. And I thought I'd call you guys. Anyway, I have to go give the eulogy.
We'd air it. They would get a swag pack for that.
Of course we'd air it. How appropriate it would be, I don't know, but certainly it would be aired.
We got to get right into the stories tonight. We have a full house of interesting, unique, offbeat, and weird Canadian news stories from the past week. But one story has risen above all others. Typically, when we have something big, I kind of tease it and we put it near the end of the episode. This story is so big and so relevant to listeners of Keep Canada Weird that I want to just open the doors with it. We've received so many emails and voicemails and social media tags all about a situation that recently played out at a Tim Hortons in Saanich, British Columbia. A viral video that was filmed at Tim Hortons appears to show an older man physically confronting a misbehaving teenager after the teen allegedly threw an object and struck the man's wife. The dramatic footage, which has been viewed millions of times online, has sparked debate over whether the senior citizen was defending his partner or if he crossed the line into vigilante justice. So this is a story about Tim Hortons. It's about misbehaving teenagers. It's about seniors living the good life. And maybe it's even about dumb Canadian criminals. Let's just jump right in and hear the story of the Tim Hortons fight and break this one down right off the jump. Here it comes.
Tim Hortons is steeped in routines and double-doubles. But on this day in late April, the only thing brewing was trouble.
I get a chocolate bar whipped at my head. And so I turned around. There's like a 14-year-old kid standing there. So I just kind of gave him a stink eye. And then I heard an old man start yelling, so I just whipped the phone. I knew something was going to go down.
Isaac Campbell captured the altercation on video. You see a man leaning over a booth where the teen is sitting before hitting him several times.
I started feeding him with punches, which
Feeding them with punches.
got broken up pretty quick. People started yelling, and this is where this guy gives his little speech.
Others surround the table talking to the team who was allegedly throwing food at customers, hitting the man's wife.
You think it's funny, eh?
It ends when another man steps in, slapping the teen before walking away.
Holy smoke.
The video, posted to Campbell's Instagram over the weekend, has since gone viral, with more than 11 million views.
I'm worried about the youth of today that have to resort to that kind of dealing too. But I applaud the guy for defending himself and defending his wife.
Many commenting have shared that position.
Talk crap, get slapped type of moment, and like justice being served.
Saanich police now investigating, saying the incident was only recently reported. They admit they don't have the full story just yet and are asking for anyone with information to come forward.
You can see he's kind of like getting in his face first.
Campbell figures the senior was giving the teen exactly what he ordered. A little discipline served fresh and hot.
Oh my goodness. I'm just going to, right off the bat, let you know that I love this story. There are so many elements of it that are interesting. But do you want to start with Isaac Campbell, the guy who filmed it?
Yeah, I love that they found the broiest of dudes to narrate this entire story.
Yeah, just feeding him with punches.
He just surfed a wave over to Tim Hortons to grab a snack and witnessed a fight. What the video didn't capture is this narrator, this surfer narrator, yelling out "fight" probably before. As soon as he sees the old man wailing on him, "Fight, fight," and then whips his phone out.
Yeah, no, he whipped his phone out first. He says himself, he said, a bar whizzed by my head. I gave the kid the stink eye. I see the old man go over there, and he's like, and that's when I just whipped the phone out.
Yeah, that's when I just whipped the phone out.
Isaac Campbell, the guy who filmed it and narrated a lot of that news clip, I think he was served a little bit of an injustice because he had some amazing quotes that didn't make it into the video presentation that were included in the article, the written version. One of the quotes that Isaac gave the news was, after the fight, I saw the old man walking out with his arm linked with his wife. It was probably a pretty sick moment for the two of them, I'd have to say. He pretty much just stuck up for his wife, smacked the guy, and walked out of there. She was probably pretty happy with him that night.
Yeah.
Which I think has a little bit of an implication, but I like that quote.
Yeah, what is he getting at there? At this... She's like, you haven't killed a man for me in 5 years. I'm so turned on.
Okay, so we love Isaac. I think we mutually agree on that. What about the other elements of the story? Was this justified? There are teenagers out of control that seem to be trying to descend society into chaos. Do you think when one of them throws candy at your wife, candy or whatever they threw at your wife, do you think you're justified in going up there and smacking him a bunch of times?
Well, it's complicated. Legally, of course, you should never resort to violence. That's I think should be our official standpoint of the podcast. However, as everybody in the planet probably agrees that the kid got his just desserts. And the issue with we're calling it the puberty problem, is what we've noticed to be an organized effort by teenagers to take over the planet. But I don't think that they're going to be able to accomplish their goals, because the thing about teenagers is that they're great at intimidating you, but when you push back at them, that's when a lot of times they will back down. So, this one old guy just went up to them, starts throwing punches, and then the teenagers didn't really do anything.
Yeah, he just kind of sat there getting punched and sat there afterwards. But also another part we can talk about is, so the senior goes up and punches him a bunch of times. Then another guy comes up and gives a speech and kind of just yells at the kid, like, what are you doing? This is nonsense. Then another man walks over. I don't know if he says anything, but it looks like he smacks the kid across the face. So there's more than one person assaulting this child. I don't support physical vigilante justice, but I'll tell you, I've been in situations where you're in a restaurant or anywhere in public and there's some teenager going wild, and there's been a lot of times where I thought, like, I wish some senior citizen would go punch this kid's face in.
Yeah, well, you love watching senior citizens do anything at all. So, in comparison to watching a senior citizen lick an ice cream cone, how do you compare it to watching a senior citizen wail on a minor?
It's definitely a different feeling and a different effect altogether. I think I have a thing for justice, and I have a lot of issues.
Hold on here.
I do.
You have a thing for, I think everybody has a thing for justice. Justice.
Yeah.
Justice is in the eye of the beholder. So
Okay.
what is justice to you may not be justice to me, but everybody believes in justice.
Well said. I agree with that, and I think that's why this story is so important and getting so much attention, is because we all know that this kid could go in there and throw chocolate bars and donuts at everyone in that restaurant. And if that kid's parents don't care or have control over him, there's nothing that's going to happen. He could show up there every day and throw stuff at people.
Yeah.
I have a feeling he'll think twice the next time.
He'll think twice, but there will be other teenagers that will continue to throw things. Have you ever...
Got him. Just kill that fly.
What are you, Mr. Miyagi, with your chopsticks trying to grab at the fly?
He just landed right next to me.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So have you ever thrown things when you were a teenager?
Yeah, I told the story before, and I think I edited it out, but I did throw things.
Okay.
And I've done stupid stuff as a teenager, but I'm reformed, and I choose to not. I choose to not dwell on past indiscretions.
It's hard for us as adults to put our adult minds into the bodies of teenagers, because when I was a teenager and we would go to the movies, we would throw candy as well. In the dark,
Yeah.
we'd launch it across the theater, and it would be hitting people in the front rows, but we were so far back, you couldn't really tell it was us. But we were giggling so much that you probably could anyway. But we would do things like that. And when I think back to it now, like if I was in a room with and teenagers were throwing candy, I'd be like, God, these idiots, man, they're ruining everybody's time. Everybody paid money to see this movie, and these teenagers are ruining it. But I was a teenager that threw candy.
And yeah, I know. And that's why the puberty problem is such an interesting phenomenon. It's because we've all kind of passed through it. We were a part of it, and we don't necessarily remember what motivated us or what drove us. And that's why it's a hard problem to stop. It's almost like there is this battle that has gone on through time between the forces of good and evil. And no one really knows what the battle's about, what motivates it, what fuels it. I guess it all just boiled over in a British Columbia Tim Hortons on that fateful day in April.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a battle literally of the ages.
The psychological aspect of it, I think, is way too deep for us to dissect. But this isn't going to be the only feud we're going to hear about tonight. This episode of Keep Canada Weird, episode 167, will actually be bookended by weird Canadian fights that were in the news. The first one was this situation at Tim Hortons. Wait till you hear about the story we end with. But before we get to it, let's take a quick break. When we get back, we have a duo of stories relating to dumb Canadian criminals. And we'll start it off with some dumb Canadian criminals that happen to be teenagers. So we're not going very far from Tim Hortons for this one. Let's take a quick break, and we'll get back to that. Handsome Aaron Airport. We missed something off the top. I was so excited to get into that Tim Hortons story, and I was so caught off guard by the host fly in the room with me and Donna's Junebug story that we forgot to unveil our special drinks. This is the first time this has happened in probably 80 episodes of doing this.
Yeah, we were on our break, and I brought it up because I've been drinking my special drink this entire time.
Well, let's just do it quick. What do you got?
I've got a Zevia zero sugar creamy root beer.
Okay, I got something kind of similar. I have a limited edition Pepsi. It's a Pepsi cream soda.
Oh, nice, nice.
I don't know if it's cream soda or cream soda flavored Pepsi, so let me take a drink.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, that's good. It's like a little Pepsi, a little cream soda. If anyone out there sees these Pepsi cream sodas, you want them. Trust me.
Did you say it's zero sugar or?
It is zero sugar. I didn't get into the dietary
Well,
the
that's
dietary
really important
information.
for us to discuss because zero sugar is pivotal to our special drink segments.
It's what keeps us looking young. Let's get into it here. Speaking of looking young, we have a story about some teenagers in Ontario who were taught a life lesson by a moose. This we don't have any video for this. The media has largely been silent on this, and I'm not sure why. We'll get to the bottom of that. But we have a text article. You want to read this, Aaron, or do you want me to? Do you want to suffer through it, or do you want me to read it?
I can give it a read.
The headline is Scarborough teens are taught crime doesn't pay by a moose.
In a bizarre blend of bad luck, bad decisions, and Canadian wildlife, two 16-year-old teens from Scarborough are facing serious charges after their sketchy road trip came to a crashing halt when they collided with a moose on Highway 69 in Walbridge Township, Ontario. Just not to interrupt right off the top, but Highway 69
Yeah, come on.
and teenagers, you know?
They're just laughing on that road. Can you believe the name of this road?
Yeah, oh, bro, I'm on 69. My God, smash. So when first responders arrived, they caught a whiff of something suspicious, namely a strong smell of freshly torched cannabis pouring out of the vehicle, which gave police grounds to search the car under the Cannabis Control Act. And that's when the story took a turn from weird to full-on dumb criminal Hall of Fame. Inside the vehicle, officers allegedly discovered 250 grams of suspected fentanyl, 33 grams of cannabis, a loaded handgun with an extended magazine,
Okay.
and 16 rounds of ammunition. Jeez. What were they up to? Where were they going or coming from? So, as if it weren't enough, one of the teens reportedly had the gun tucked in his waistband, loaded with no safety mechanism whatsoever.
Oh my God.
Yeah, terrifying. Both teens are now facing multiple drug and firearm charges, including possession for the purposes of trafficking. This strange saga ends with a thank you to first responders who, in addition to dealing with drug trafficking suspects, also had to contend with a dazed moose and a, and a vehicular wreck. As Deputy Chief Julie Crandock put it, it's a sobering reminder of the unpredictable dangers of the job.
Where do we start with that? What a train wreck of a situation.
Oh my God.
So there are these two kids with a bunch of allegedly fentanyl and all this other stuff and a gun with an extended magazine stuffed in their waist, not without the safety on. They're luckily they didn't get shot in their junk when they hit the moose. But it's kind of just like the Tim Hortons thing. It's
Yeah.
almost like kind of poetic justice. The moose just walks up, gets smoked. But I guess I'm surprised the kids didn't get out and run. Like, because they would have had to wait for the first responders to show up. So they must have been stuck in the car with all the cannabis smoke.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about two 16-year-olds who probably haven't been using common sense from the very beginning of this plan. Whatever it is they were doing. We're talking about a 16-year-old that was carrying a firearm without any safety mechanism whatsoever in his pants. Like,
I hate to laugh, but dude,
yeah, come on.
come on.
If you're going to do it right. But
Mhm.
it's the teenagers are, and the puberty problem. I'm becoming less and less worried about it because it just seems like they can't follow through on plans.
Yeah, get your butt kicked in Tim Hortons, smoke a moose and get arrested with all this drugs and nonsense.
I like that the moose was relatively unfazed in the
Yeah,
entire incident.
it was just dazed.
Yeah. I was just like, what? And of course, it happened on Highway
Yeah.
69. Like, it couldn't be more poetic.
Smoking a joint in the car on Highway 69 with a bunch of drugs and guns.
And one of them pointed at your own penis.
Yeah, not a great idea.
Like, come on. The animal uprising is miles ahead of the puberty problem right now.
We have another animal story. I don't know if this is going to connect to the animal uprising. This is a dark one. I don't like this story at all, but it is one of the strangest stories I recall coming across. I know you don't like stories about animals being harmed, so I do have a animal-related palate cleanser, but we got to talk about the headless deer at a grocery store in Alberta. This story was sent to us by a correspondent named Darcy with the subject line of the email they sent me was "Only in Alberta." And I think Darcy's right, because this story is certainly an only in Alberta story. This is a story that we're going to tell in two parts. Let's start at the beginning. This is a story about something strange and horrific being found behind a Calgary grocery store this past December. It's the story of a headless deer carcass and the search for who dumped it. Here's how the story is originally told on the news.
It's a very bizarre and shocking discovery, one that's left a lot of people in disbelief and a big question why. Now, Fish and Wildlife officers are on the hunt for a couple caught on camera believed to be dumping the carcass of a wild animal in a very public place behind this Calgary Co-op grocery store. Now, officers say on December 16th, they responded to the Monterey Square Plaza after getting reports that a gutted, headless carcass of a male white-tailed deer was dumped in the alley. After an investigation, they obtained security camera footage that showed around noon on December 15th, a man and a woman had pulled up in a minivan, who then proceeded to dump the carcass of a deer near the dumpster behind the co-op. Now, the agency didn't have any details about the couple. However, they believe the two were driving in an older model Toyota Sienna between 1998 and 2003. That's blue with gray lower paneling.
So again, the clip we just listened to was what was aired this past December, shortly after the headless deer carcass was found behind a grocery store. At this point, they're still searching for the people caught on camera, seemingly dropping off this deer. But at this point in the story, why the hell would you, if you had a deer carcass, I don't know why you even would, with its head removed, why would you think I'm going to just drop it off like in an alley of a grocery store? Certainly they have like forests in rural areas in Calgary.
Yeah, my first, if I found myself somehow with a headless deer carcass, my instinct would be to drop it off in the deeper part of the woods, maybe, or
yeah, like if you were a scumbag that was dropping off a dead deer somewhere,
yeah,
why you would
yeah.
have it, like, and the why is bizarre, because I understand like hunters may take the head and make like, you know, the thing on your wall or whatever, like it's a buck and it has all the horns and you put the head on the wall, taxidermy. I know that's a thing, but generally they eat the meat and stuff. So like there's not like, I don't want to get graphic, but in this video, you can see pictures of the dead animal. It doesn't look to me like the meat or anything was taken. It looks like a deer missing its head, just laying on the ground in an alley, which it just doesn't make any sense to me why they would have it, why they would decide to drop it off. What would compel them to put this thing in a van and drive it there? The whole thing is bonkers. They had pretty good video of the vehicle and the people getting in and out, getting this, you know, and dropping the deer off. But it took a while. It took them 6 months before we have a big update that we're going to talk about.
Right.
So again, the video we just listened to was December. Here's what happened last week.
A Calgary woman has been fined $3,000 for dumping a headless deer carcass in a Northeast parking lot last December. Security footage from December 15th, 2024 shows a man and a woman dumping the carcass behind the Monterey Square Plaza Co-op store. Alberta Fish and Wildlife officers say they were later identified and charged. The woman pleaded guilty to multiple offenses. The second person charged has a court date in August. Neither are believed responsible for killing the deer.
So start with that point that they end it with. Neither person is thought to be responsible for killing the deer.
Mm-hmm.
So how do they come in possession of the deer? I would have assumed it was like a hunter who maybe got the animal and only wanted it for its head because it had like big horns or something like that. But how do these people who didn't kill the deer come in possession of a headless deer?
Yeah, the conclusion leaves us with more questions than answers. And it took a confusing situation and it made it even weirder as to say that we don't believe that they're the ones that killed the deer. So who killed the deer? I don't know. I'd like to think that maybe an explanation of this is, you know how like the mob would leave like a horse's head in your bed? Maybe this was they wanted to leave a deer's head in somebody's bed.
But then what do you do with the rest of the deer?
What do you do with the rest of it? So these were just kind of two like really low level mob members that were tasked with, well, what are we going to do with the rest of the body? And it's like, I don't know, I'll give it to them. They'll throw it out behind the co-op.
That's an interesting theory, Aaron, but maybe we can get a bit of insight if we look at the charges that this woman is facing. This Calgary woman, who they haven't named, has been charged and pled guilty to a series of offenses, including unlawful possession of wildlife, abandonment of big game, providing false or misleading information to fish and wildlife officers, operating a vehicle while suspended, and improper disposal of waste on private property. So maybe that doesn't tell us much. It tells us that this person didn't seem to even have a license. Their license was suspended while they were doing all this. Come on.
It sounds like this person shouldn't be doing anything.
No, they're not. They're not.
They're not
great.
allowed to do anything, and then they did a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and lied about it to the fish and wildlife people. What about this $3,000 fine? I feel like the person who was left to deal with the headless deer carcass behind that building, they deserve more than $3,000 for even having to do that work. Like who had to deal with this?
I imagine it would have been the wildlife organization or foundation, whatever, would have come and dealt with it. I can't see your run-of-the-mill grocery store employee out on their cigarette break being like, "While you're out there, get rid of that headless deer carcass."
Sometimes you'll go by a spot like a grocery store or something, and you see someone's dumped trash. There's like an old coach or like an exercise bike or something that someone just dropped. And I assume in a case like that, the store's like waste management contract stuff leads to someone dealing with it. I wonder if these idiots with the headless deer thought it was just going to go away.
Yeah, I didn't think it was going to make I don't think that they thought that it would make the waves that it did. that people would be this upset over it, where they're just like, we didn't kill it, so we can just kind of throw it anywhere, right?
Let me see your license and registration, ma'am. Both that license.
Yeah, here's the thing. I'm not allowed to do anything, and I'm out here doing a bunch of stuff. So, sorry.
Yeah, screw her. And yeah, the other person involved, he has a trial this summer. Maybe we'll get to the bottom of the story then. But I know you don't like stories about animals being hurt, and certainly this deer felt pain as its head was removed. So let's have a palate cleanser before our next ad break. I have a heartwarming animal story. And maybe a pivotal moment for Keep Canada Weird. After years of trying and failing to play matchmaker for our listeners, Keep Canada Weird, I think, can now finally celebrate our first wedding. Though it's not exactly the kind of wedding we expected. At a farm in Bright, Ontario, a cow named Muriel tied the knot with her Highland bull beau named Rhett in what may be Canada's weirdest wedding of the past week. Here comes the cow marriage. Let me know if you support this kind of thing.
It's utterly ridiculous farm life who are putting on the wedding, and we're going to go there right now to find CTV's Alexandra Hollick. Well, nothing ridiculous about this story, Alexandra. This is, in fact, the world's first ever cow wedding.
That's right, Tony. And now I can tell you, I witnessed the ceremony firsthand, and it was a moving ceremony for sure. The two mini Highland cows, of course, Muriel and Rhett. Muriel was dressed beautifully in a white gown. She had a little flower wreath on her head as well. And of course, because they're Highland cows, Rhett was wearing a kilt. Now, those outfits came off pretty quickly, just with when the two cows came together. But it was quite lovely and quite unique as well, too. Dozens of guests came out to support both the bride and the groom. Now they're enjoying their meals with alpacas around them as well. And it really was something first of its kind in the preparatory part of it. Muriel was in her bridal suite, getting all ready there. She had a fan on. She painted her hooves a nice pink color. Rhett was a little bit nervous. He may have had cold feet, but all in all, a beautiful ceremony nonetheless.
Alexandra, excellent play-by-play. We can tell by the video that you just showed us that, you know, with a wedding involving two Highland cows, obviously any sense of formality goes right off the table there.
I support that kind of thing. I think that's all right.
I support it. Yeah, it's. I guess so.
Would you marry off your cat?
Would I marry him off? No.
Well, I wouldn't say marry him off, but let's say there's a cat next door that your cat, Ken Tiggs, likes spending a lot of time with. Would you and then maybe your neighbor come up with like some kind of plan to have a ceremony? Like, is it necessary? Maybe it's just a fun thing
I
to
think
do
it's just a fun thing to do, attract visitors to the farm, make some
there's
money.
no legal,
you know.
It's not legally binding.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm not educated enough in animal marriages to really speak on it. But, well, do you remember, I don't know, maybe you don't remember this, but me and our friend Jesse married, remember Stella, the cat that we lived with that time?
It was a cat with one eye.
Yeah. Well, there was a neighborhood cat that kept coming into the apartments. Do you remember that?
I don't remember this cat.
Yeah. So anyway, this cat would come into the apartment every now and then, and Jesse and I decided to marry Stella and the neighborhood cat. So we did the same thing where we got 2 dishes of food, put them together, and the 2 cats came up and started eating from the dishes. And then we had our guitars out and we played Here Comes the Bride while they ate. And we considered that to be a legally binding marriage of the 2 cats.
You should have called the news. You guys could have been stars.
I didn't know that it was something that could be covered on the news.
It seems like there's kind of like no bottom to how low it'll go if there's not much going on.
But there's lots going on. We're on the verge of societal collapse.
That's true.
There's more than your fair share of horrific stories to tell. And we're talking about this stuff because I guess it's distracting us from our impending doom.
Mm-hmm. It certainly is. I'll tell you, I love like picking out the stories and researching for Keep Canada Weird is amazing because as I go through the news, if it mentions anything about politics, war, famine, disease, and just like scroll by it, and then it's like cow marriage. I'm like, I'm going to read all about this.
Yeah, it's so sexy.
This podcast and the topics we cover is it's the equivalent of sticking your head in the sand. But it's like nice, soft, warm sand. And I like it down there. And I have my head stuck in the sand with you, Aaron. So it's not such a bad place to be.
Well, if we're close enough together in the sand, we could get married.
That's true.
Yeah.
On that note, let's take our final ad break of the night. I promised you to bookend this episode with fascinating feuds. We started with the senior kicking the crap out of a kid at Tim Hortons. We're going to end it with a neighborly dispute that is some of the most nonsensical nonsense I've heard in a long time, and it also features one of the least sympathetic main characters profiled in the story we're going to hear about. Let's take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll hear all about the fence in Kitchener. Handsome Aaron Airport. I always enjoy stories involving neighborhood and neighborly disputes. It's really interesting to see the rifts that form between people who are forced to live next to each other. When I got an email from a Keep Canada Weird correspondent named Katrina telling me a story about a neighborly dispute over a fence in Kitchener, I dove in head first. This story is absolutely bananas. We got to talk about it. Let's just jump right in. A Kitchener man's quest for a peaceful backyard has turned into an all-out neighborhood standoff. And like all good Canadian disputes, the whole thing is teetering somewhere between a case of cold shoulders and potential court dates. Here's the story of the fence in Kitchener.
A feud between two neighbors over a fence is heating up. A Kitchener homeowner put up a fence in his backyard, but when he wanted to attach it to his neighbor's pre-existing posts, it caused tension. And now the neighbor removed his own fence, leaving a gap between the two properties. Heather, you had a chance to speak with both homeowners.
One on camera and the other off camera, Tony. The first neighbor says he just wanted some privacy for his family and their dog, but now there's a big chunk of fencing missing.
And he just grabbed a sawzall and decided to cut it down.
Peter Christodoulou says he no longer spends time in his backyard after a dispute with the neighbor behind him over this fence. The fence you see around the rest of the yard was put up by Christodoulou's contractor in the summer of 2023, but he says his neighbor had a problem with it.
When it was time to put up boards, he came over with a hammer and started hammering away, telling the contractor to stop.
The neighbor already had a fence up, and Christodoulou was trying to connect to his neighbor's two existing posts, as he says his neighbor's posts are too close to the property line.
But I'm not going to put a second line of a fence because somebody doesn't want me to join to their two posts, right?
A year later, Christodoulou says his neighbor removed his own fence, leaving a gap of privacy.
Like, you just slayed yourself $1,000 at least, if not a little more, in wood. If all you wanted was me to pay half, you could have just came and talked about it, and we would have talked about it reasonably, right?
The neighbor did not want to appear on camera, but told CTV News he tried to speak to Christodoulou twice prior to the fence being built to have a conversation, but it didn't end up happening. Christodoulou says he doesn't want to speak with him.
I mean, I go over there, I get arrested, I lose my practice, I lose my job, destroy my life over some petty neighbor that wants half of a fence that he put up 2 years before my property was built, right?
According to the City of Kitchener, there is no obligation or requirement for a homeowner to construct a fence, as long as it meets height and location requirements, adding that any disputes regarding property boundaries or cost sharing are considered civil matters and should be addressed through legal counsel if necessary.
So I only built from here over, and then
Christodoulou says he and his wife are considering moving.
If I have to sell my house at a loss, I'm going to go after him for it. This is reasonable enjoyment.
The neighbor says he will be seeking his own legal counsel.
Oh, that is a mess, Aaron. So for people who couldn't kind of follow the play-by-play there, is the main guy speaking to the news, Peter Christodoulou, wanted to build a fence in his backyard, and rather than build all three sides of the fence, he wanted to just connect to his neighbor's fence to take advantage of, one completed side, I guess is the best way to describe it. That neighbor, for whatever reasons we don't know, didn't want Peter Christodoulou to have his fence connect to the neighbor's fence. So what the neighbor did, I guess, out of protest, was cut his own fence down, leaving this big, massive gap in the center, so that when either party's in their backyards, I guess they just have to look at each other. I don't know why someone would have a problem with someone connecting to their post, but even if I did, I would just not allow them to. I wouldn't cut down my own fence. That's the part I really don't get.
I really don't get that either. It seems like they're punishing themselves trying to punish the other neighbor, and it doesn't
Yeah, because
make
then you got to
any
look
sense
at
at
them.
all.
Yeah, because now everyone, when they go out in their yard, everyone has to look at each other, and just clearly they don't like each other. As far as how it came to this, it seems like one neighbor, the one who didn't show up on the camera, the person who cut their own fence down, told the news, like, we tried to talk to them and it didn't work out. Where Peter Christodoulou, when they asked him, like, why don't you talk to the neighbor? What he said was, I don't want to go over there and end up getting arrested and lose my practice and lose everything that I've like spent my life working on. So I think there has to be more to this story.
Yeah.
Why would he get arrested for going to the neighbors to be like, yeah, can we make it some kind of deal about that fence?
He's insinuating that it's going to turn violent if he goes over there to try and deal with this, is how I'm interpreting it. That if he goes over there, he's gonna hurt this guy.
I'm gonna kill the guy.
Yeah.
Well, it's or something is going to, because you can go knock on someone's door. I don't think that's illegal unless he's already been told don't come on my property. And there's this huge backstory that the news probably should have covered. Another kind of thing that I think maybe gives a sense of Peter Christodoulou's thoughts on this situation is he says at the end of the clip, he said, I may have to sell my house. And if I sell my house at a loss, I'm going to go after him for it.
Yeah.
How could you possibly go after it? Like, what would be your lawsuit against them? They cut down their fence and I didn't want to live there anymore. And I sold my house for less than should have. So I'm suing them because they cut their fence down.
Yeah. The only solution here is to take the few feet loss to your property line, because he would, in order for him to have a fully completed enclosed backyard, he would have to build his third wall a few feet from his neighbor's fence. Therefore, he would lose several feet to his backyard. But I would just take that loss, build the entire fence, and be done with it because then you can't see the neighbor anymore. You're closed off to them. You don't have to deal with them. You don't have to see them. And all you're losing is 2 or 3 feet of your backyard.
Rather than the whole backyard. And then the neighbor is stuck looking at their own chopped down fence.
Yeah.
So it's like they have this eyesore. But usually, like when you build a fence, I think you're supposed to be like a foot or something away from the property line. So I wonder if that's a part of the dispute. Like I think if Peter Christodoulou built his fence and connected to the neighbor's fence, then Peter Christodoulou is probably getting like a foot of the neighbor's property. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So
yeah.
So then if Peter Christodoulou has to build his own back wall of his fence, not only is he in like a foot from the neighbor's fence, he probably has to come like a foot further in front of his property line. So there's like these kind of gap between the fences. But most people can come up with some kind of an agreement to avoid that. Clearly, these two aren't able to negotiate if it results in one guy cutting his own fence down and Peter Christodoulou on the news threatening to sue him if he doesn't get enough if he sells his house.
Yeah. I mean, from the very beginning of this story, if I was the neighbor, like if you asked if you could just connect to my fence, I'd be like, yeah, go for it. What do I care? I'm only using the part of my yard that is within the fence. So what? Yeah. I don't care about the property line part. Like once the fence is up, the full enclosed fence. Like, who cares?
That's the property line is where my fence is. And whether or not you connect to the posts that I have in the ground, you wouldn't even see that because it's all on the other side of the solid fence. So it seems like, well, and I guess that's what's interesting about these neighborly disputes is they're often just over this nonsense. Like this is something that shouldn't affect anybody, but now they're on the news and they're threatening to sue each other, getting lawyers involved. It's like, come on.
Right.
Guys.
And the neighbor that did chop their own fence down made the right decision to not appear on the news over this thing.
Yeah.
But I would say there's probably been some lead up to this story. I doubt this was their first negative interaction together. I imagine there was probably a few different circumstances over the years that a few butting of heads that these two neighbors had. So,
yeah, I have a feeling that's the case. We'll see if there's ever an update. I tried to get to the bottom of it by just doing a bit of research, see if there was much else written or appearing online. The only thing I really found was the man who appears in this news clip writing about it a whole lot on Facebook and claiming that he has a video of some interaction that he's going to post and make the guy who cut down his own fence famous. It doesn't appear that the video was ever released. If it is, we'll have an update because I'm sure there's some interesting stuff said in that.
Yeah. I would love to see whatever video he's talking about, even if there is a video. I don't know. I trust this guy less and less the more I think about him. But anyway, who knows? This is hard to draw up a firm decision of justice on this one. As much as we both love justice, and
we do have a thing for justice.
We both coincidentally have a thing for justice, and it's hard to know where justice lies with this story.
Yeah, I think they're both losing, and they're probably both guilty of unsportsmanlike conduct in their backyards. But all that said, we do have a thing for justice. We also have a thing for ice cream and the enjoyment of it by Canada's senior citizens. That's why this next, well, not even Canada's, by the world's senior citizens. And that's why this next voicemail that we're going to end the show with is so important. Do you remember a while back we had a voicemail from someone who thought we were maybe doing harm to ourselves with the amount of special drinks we drink?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Okay.
And I think about it every time I have a drink of any drink I'm drinking.
I actually do too. That came from Tatiana. Turns out Tatiana's a senior citizen who likes ice cream, and she's ready to pull back the Iron Curtain. Here it comes.
Hi, this is Tatiana from Arizona. I once called concerning your health of your special drinks. This time I would like to comment on seniors eating ice cream because I am a senior. I'm 70 years old and I don't eat ice cream very often, but when I do in public, I love to eat licorice ice cream and just freak everybody out, stick out my tongue, I black lips, black teeth, and when you hit a certain age, you just don't care anymore what people think. And I just love to do that. And I'd also like to say hello to Ken Tiggs because I am a kitty person too. You guys all take care.
I'm not familiar with this black licorice ice cream, but what I do know is that the kid in the first news story that got his butt kicked at Tim Hortons should have gotten into the mind of a senior citizen by listening to Tatiana's voicemail, because the type of person who's at an age where they care so little about what other people think that they just go crazy with black licorice ice cream is not the kind of person you want to throw food at in a Tim Hortons coffee shop.
Yeah, and normally you're the one that likes to watch seniors do things. That's what you like. But this is a circumstance where I would like to see Tatiana with her totally black teeth and tongue and lips just screaming at passersby on the sidewalk on a hot day. And I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that filmed, and I would like to watch it so I can enjoy it. And that is something that I would like to watch a senior citizen do. And so Tatiana, I put this call out to you. Can you film this? and send it to me.
Not for the show. This is a personal thing.
No. This is not for the show. This is just a thing. You've really pushed a button in me, and this is something I'd like to watch.
That's a great voicemail. I'm curious about this black licorice ice cream, although I wouldn't try it. When she said licorice ice cream. I thought, ooh, licorice ice cream would be delicious. But then when she said how it's black, like black licorice, not so interested. I'm not crazy about
Yeah.
black licorice. Red licorice is something that I've never thought of being mixed with ice cream, but that could work.
Yeah, red licorice for sure would be a tasty ice cream. I agree with you on the black licorice. It's not my cup of tea. Um, Black licorice is always something that I felt belonged in like an old general store where the elderly would go in and
Yeah.
only buy black licorice.
I see it as a senior's kind of treat, just like hard candy. Like this, my grandmother always had like a tray of like all these candies stuck together.
Yeah, like old little dish of hard candies. I imagine the elderly going into this old general store, purchasing some black licorice, and then coming out the front door of the general store screaming with black lips and teeth and tongue. "Ah! Ah!"
I think that's a great way to end the show. Do we have anything else we need to say or do? Or did we accomplish our tasks tonight? We bookmarked it with feuds. We had the headless deer story, which was a dumb Canadian crime story. We had the kids driving down Highway 69. We've done it all.
Cows got married.
Come on, what else could people want from us?
What a roller coaster.
Let's put a bow on episode 167.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
I want to let everyone know, though, as a quick reminder, you can send a voicemail by going to nighttimepodcast.com/contact. If your voicemail is aired in the show, you qualify for a Keep Canada Weird swag pack. To redeem your swag pack, you can also do that at nighttimepodcast.com/contact. There's a button you push there where it'll say claim your swag pack, and it asks you for your address and all that stuff. So if you have a voicemail aired, go to nighttimepodcast.com/contact and get the swag pack. We got some new stuff. I got some cool Keep Canada Weird and nighttime stickers. I have a seniors eating ice cream sticker and a bunch of other stuff. And another thing, Aaron, maybe I should have said this earlier. Neither person claimed their New Kids on the Block prize pack.
No, after all that trouble.
But
Oh, man.
all they need to do is go to nighttimepodcast.com/contact and that can happen. The coloring books are sitting here waiting. They're hanging tough on my shelf.
Yeah.
And step by step, I can bring them to the post office.
Yeah. Ooh, baby.
I'm going to mail it to you girls because it both were females, I believe, that claim them.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've done it. Let's put a bow on this. Handsome Aaron Airport. Until next time.
Jordan, bus stop, backhoe, Bonaparte. Until next time.
Just like Isaac Campbell recommends, if you're out somewhere and you see things getting heated, whip your phone out.
Yeah. And Jordan, until next time, make sure it's only your phone you're whipping out.
Okay. I want to thank you for helping Aaron and I fulfill our mission to keep Canada weird. If you got a news story from your area that you'd like to share with us, or have any thoughts or theories or opinions on anything we discussed tonight, we'd love to hear from you. You can contact us by using the voice recorder that can be found at nighttimepodcast.com/contact. And on that topic, I want to give a big thank you to this episode's correspondents. If your voice message was aired tonight, you can email me your address. My email is nighttimepodcast@gmail.com, and I'll get a Keep Canada Weird badge and swag pack sent out to you. I just ask that you wear the badge proudly and responsibly. Next, a big thanks goes out to Aaron for another great night, Unicole for the intro and outro voiceovers, and Monty Data for the outro version of O Canada. And then, of course, a sincere and massive thank you goes out to each and every one of you listening. Your support makes this show possible. And if you'd like to support the show even more, please consider a subscription to the premium feed, which can be found at nighttimepodcast.com/subscribe. The premium feed costs just a couple dollars a month, but that money will fund the creation of new episodes of the show, and it'll give you those episodes 2 days early, ad-free, and access to a back catalog of episodes. And even if you don't want to go premium, you can still support the show by sharing this episode on social media. That helps a lot too, and it's free. Your support is very much appreciated. So with all that said, until next time, take care of each other, hug your loved ones tight, and together, let's keep Canada weird.
Keep Canada Weird is written, hosted, and produced by the Nighttime Podcast.
And now to our viewers and listeners everywhere, good night.
there's like a 14-year-old kid standing there. So I just kind of gave him a stink eye. And then I heard an old man start yelling, so I just whipped the phone out. I knew something was going to go down. Started feeding him with punches, which, got broken up pretty quick.
Christodoulou says he and his wife are considering moving.
If I have to sell my house at a loss, I'm going to go after him for it. This is reasonable enjoyment.
Because there's a June bug in the house, so I lock myself in the office until he gets here. I am shaking. I'm going to have a heart attack.
And I don't eat ice cream very often, but when I do in public, I love to eat licorice ice cream and just freak everybody out, stick out my tongue, I black lips, black teeth, and when you hit a certain age, you just don't care anymore what people think. And I just love to do that. You guys all take care.
And keep Canada weird. Please keep Canada weird.